Like Santa Rosa, Northern Bay?
Yeah. My dad worked in Petaluma.
Your father worked in Petaluma?
Yeah, for a while, but in Colorado.
Petaluma's a town.
Cool. Yes, I was very curious how this is a horrible commute, but okay. The city of Petaluma is known for its dairy industry, rolling grassy hills, Bay Area, a lot of rain, a lot of grass year round. You can make cows really happy. Happy cows make happy. The California Milk and Dairy campaign was funded mostly by Petaluma. And in Petaluma, there was some wacky farmer, like Bay Area type, progressive environmentalist type, who figured out that you can take all the poo from all the cows, put it inside of a tanker with some water, you paint it black so it gets hot in there, and you've got hot water, organic material, and presumably there's bacteria, if not you have to add it. And that giant tank used to bubble out methane that he was able to pressurize and channel and use for a generator. So he ran his dairy farm, all the electricity came from the digestion of organic material from the farm. So he was able to make a closed loop dairy farm where all the energy input was basically sunlight, grass, cow, food, digestion, methane, electricity. Yeah. I think the sludge you get out of this is actually still usable. Because the nitrogen and the phosphorus and the potassium don't usually off gas. You lose a lot of the nitrogen gas, because denitrifying bacteria aren't working here. But at least the phosphorus and the potassium should still stay behind, and you can keep some of the nitrogen if you change the bacterial conditions. Yeah?
You're like a farmer with a degree in engineering or something? Like, how did you just come out?
I'm not clear on this, and by the way, I've heard this story third hand, so for all I know, he hired a college professor to do this, or I don't know. But, I have heard that this is a relatively simple thing. Like, it's actually, like, he used an old tanker truck that was on his property because it had broken down. I don't know what happened, whatever. Big hill in front of his farm.
Yeah. And then it's just like a fun, like kind of circle of, like,
yeah.
Goes through. Or, I didn't mean to use that word, actually, for lack of a better word.
It's fine, because I've got an application of this that might slightly blow your mind. Remember that we said platinum is one catalyst, but if you had different gases, you could use different catalysts. So fuel cells in general do the same thing. They split atoms and polarity and membrane. Yes. But you can make a fuel cell that works on another gas, not hydrogen. Our wastewater treatment facility, where I will take you in February, uses the farts that still haven't happened in your poo to make electricity. Watch this. Your poo goes to the wastewater treatment facility. By the time it gets there, the poo is not poo anymore. It's just slushy water. That slushy water has organic material. They remove that organic material, and as it decomposes, it gives off methane, which they capture. And instead of lighting the methane on fire, they have methane fuel cells, solid-state methane fuel cells. That make electricity from methane by splitting and reuniting.
That's what you meant by haven't happened.
So there are parts that haven't happened yet because, you got rid of it before it had finished that digestion.
What are the byproducts of the...
So before I answer his question, you got to admit that's cool, right?
7 years old.
Okay. Yeah, so go ahead.
Well, because the hydrogen fuel cell gives off water, what happens on the other end?
I don't know, but I'll bet you when we go there, we can find a dude that'll answer that question for you.
It's like hydrogen.
I mean, yeah, Google methane fuel cell byproduct. Okay.
Hydrogen would make water and the carbon would make CO2.
I reckon, yeah. No, maybe that's how it works. You strip the hydrogens from the methane?
Yeah.
Or just split an electron off the methane.
I was just always do that.
Oh, they would liberate from the methane too, yeah. Interesting, I don't know. Okay, back to me. So this is called digestion. Remember, you can use the biomass directly, but not all biomass is flammable. Like slaughterhouse waste. It's kind of hard to light all that blood and guts on fire, but you can use blood and guts to make digestion in the water with the bubbles in the mouth. Okay. Number 35, and then we are done. Geothermal's on the screen. I didn't have any space left to make a drawing, and BT dubs. I didn't want to draw that.
No.
It's actually not that fancy. Mechanically speaking, geothermal electricity is really simple. Oh, and another BT dubs, George W. Bush, who people of all political stripes say was no friend of the environment. And I know that I'm an extremely biased source, but anybody you ask will tell you George W. Bush was the least environmental president probably ever. I mean, Republicans who protect the environment had this one complaint about him. His house is heated and cooled by geothermal. It is a totally carbon neutral off the grid ranch. Yeah.
Doesn't the courthouse do something like that?
Well, I don't know, does it?
Yeah, I heard from my dad. Like, you know how they have those like weird little like they look kind of like they're like those big metal like things here or something like that.
Yeah.
Apparently, like those go under the ground, and the air is like kept at like 60 degrees.
I don't believe you.
I took a
That's
tour
like,
there.
yeah, showed me. My dad was telling me about it.
Huh.
About what?
Those things that are on the
It's like passive geothermal.
sure, those things that are out on the curb.
Yeah, those are like vents.
Oh,
The air is pumped underground.
okay. Okay. This is the same principle. Water is pumped underground, but much deeper than 60 degrees. Like 60-degree dirt is 3 feet down. We're talking like 3 miles down, 2 miles down. So this is really deep. You gotta find hot crust or hot subcrust. And if you can, you put cold water down, hot water comes out, you make steam, electricity, power.
Seems like earthquakes are really problematic.
And coincidentally, people argue that these might even cause earthquakes because you're taking energy out of the tectonic system by removing heat. That rock will shrink. So if you could significantly cool the crust, if you had a lot of heat leaving,
We would have to get so much.
then friction, yeah, exactly. But if
So much.
the numbers we're talking about don't seem to line up as a tectonic force versus the heat loss to steam. It's irrelevant so far. But if we go really big on this, it may have impact on tectonic processes. This is the one theoretical downside.
How do the processes affect that? Like your pipes are down there and the earth is shifting.
If you had movement between these sections that would shear the pipes, technically most of the crust that's moving is far deeper. The pieces that are moving are not at the surface.
Okay, so you shouldn't have to worry about that.
You know, I'm out of my league here, but I think not. You've got to have, please look over here, a thin crust or a volcanic region. So, in other words, you've got to be in Iceland. Iceland gets like 70% of their electricity this way, 20, and whatever it is, it's huge.
Well, I mean, their population is like 3,000.
It helps, yeah. They're cheating in many ways. They're also like hot blondes everywhere. But
Yeah.
Iceland seems to have just the right scenario for geothermal. A lot of other places can at least get a little bit here and there. In California, the Sierras would do us a lot of good. You know, the Mammoth Mountain is a volcano. And that's why you can ride all day and then go hit the Whitmore tubs in the evening. Those Whitmore tubs are hot water surfacing So if there's hot water surfacing, you could add a little pressure to bring steam out, and you could just start putting power plants like crazy out there. Many people have talked about it. In the right spots, geothermal is a good way to fill in with some electricity. No? You know,
where is George Bush's ranch?
I believe it's called Waco, Texas.
So,
but if it's not Waco, it's near Waco. Like Waco is where they had the crazy shooting, and so I can't remember if that's where his ranch is or if it's another place. Anybody know? Like the presidential ranch in blah blah blah, Texas.
Yeah.
I think it's Waco.
And that's where you have for this stuff?
You know, in his case, they don't do electricity generation there. His electricity is mostly solar.
Okay.
They just get house heating and house cooling. So the stuff that comes out of the ground isn't like pressurized steam at 300 degrees. It's like, 98 degrees, so they pump it through the foundation and warm the house.
Okay.
Yes.
Also, some lady had like on a whole $5 million pool setup, and she needed it this way. She had like 10 different pools around her house.
Yeah, that's my house actually. I didn't want him to put it on TV, but I was trying to be humble. Okay. Clearly that woman was a school teacher. Alright. I'm done with alternative energy unless you have questions. But now the hard part. If we've got all these alternatives, why aren't we using them like crazy?
They're expensive.
Well, how will we decide? I've got a couple of notes on this. I'm not sure which part you need to write down, but at least you should know the variables. The way that we are juggling our energy systems continent-wide, it's not just what's best for the environment. So some of you already mentioned it, but probably number one is the cost. Nobody's going to lose money to save the environment. That's just out. You got to have more benefit than cost. And it's actually got to be a lot. If Will says, hey, I've got $20 million, what can you do for me? I could say, well, we could make a coal-burning power plant, and you'll get 20% on your investment in a decade, or whatever it is, 5% on your investment in 20 years, but that's a known number. Because we've been doing coal, and we know how coal works, and we know how profitable it is, and we can forecast the amount of electricity produced. And these are all known values. So if you want to invest $20 million, and I've got the plans for a coal-burning power plant, he knows with a pretty good reliability how much he can expect from my coal-burning power plant. Any of these, we don't know. Give me one. Any of these, we don't know. You can't be apologizing. I'm just kidding. And by the way, even if I was like, oh, well, my digestion system is pretty reliable, there's this other issue. You've got to add risk. And there's a lot of stuff that we just don't know about because these technologies are new. So there's a tax when there are unknown or unknowable risks. If he can get 5% on his investment with coal, and I tell him 7% on your investment with biomass, he should still choose coal. Because there's risks we don't know about in biomass, but we know by now most of the risks in coal. That profitability has to be offset by dependability too. It can be offset by risk, I mean. There's another funny thing that happens in most parts of the world, in all parts of the world. At every moment, more electricity is being made than what is needed. At any given moment, our grid must have extra electricity. Because if for a demand is higher than the supply at that split second, the whole grid